Our story begins on a hot July day in 1518, when German housewife Frau Trophy stepped out of her home in Strasbourg and started to get down to a boogie that no one else could hear. She danced in the streets of her small town all day, to the embarrassment of her husband, who was not himself equally compelled to dance in any way. Frau stopped dancing long enough for a few hours of restless sleep before waking the next day and tapping her toes bloody again. A crowd began to form around this seemingly insane woman dancing to absolutely nothing, with bruised and bloody feet. What a fun little street performance, the villagers must have thought as this poor woman danced herself to very possible death. Soon, however, she wasn't alone. Frau formed a whole dance troupe with roughly 30 others catching the jitterbug and joining her in a spontaneous dance-off. Frau soon had a full marching band worth of people dancing with her. The dancing mania, as it was eventually labeled, spread to more people in Strasbourg, with estimates as high as 400 people involuntarily joining her dance crew. It quickly grew into a full-grown crisis that the city council had no clue how to manage. They don't teach you how to handle spontaneous raves in crisis management courses at business school. The only clear thing they could agree on was these groovy kids were not having a groovy time. Dancers were in obvious pain, screaming in agony and begging for mercy from whatever bizarre affliction they were suffering from. As the summer stretched on and the temperatures rose, as many as 15 people a day were dying from dancing in the streets. Geez, David Bowie and Mick Jagger made it look so fun.
Dancing in the street.
Fresh out of ideas on how to handle this makeshift prom themselves, the city council consulted with local physicians to diagnose the problem and shut it down for good. After ruling out the standard astrological causes and supernatural causes, the doctor diagnosed the exhausted dancing maniacs with a probable case of hot blood, which sounds like a diagnosis from the band Foreigner. But really, the theory was that hot blood was a problem with the balance in a person's humors. In a case of hot blood, doctors believed the brain would overheat, which in turn would cause madness. The typical remedy? It's the 1500s, so if you guessed bloodletting, you guessed right. However, given these victims' specific inability to voluntarily stop moving, physically removing any blood, regardless of temperature, wasn't a feasible course to take. So, unlike the town in Footloose, they prescribed even more dancing. They hired musicians to get the crowd hyped and brought in extras to mix up the energy of this lame party, hoping of burning out the dancers. But to no avail. This cure, like a poorly chaperoned prom, was a failure and actually exasperated the problem. As the exhausted dancers were beginning to stumble and slow down, the musicians didn't think to play the slow jams and cool the room off.